You know what's interesting about the most intelligent women you've ever met? They probably didn't look the way you expected them to. They weren't the loudest person in the room. They weren't performing their intelligence, quoting facts, dominating conversations, making sure you knew how much they knew. In fact, if you passed them on the street, you might not notice them at all. But if you sat with them for an hour, really sat with them, you'd feel something different. A depth. A way of seeing that doesn't move in straight lines. And here's what most people get wrong. We've been taught that intelligence looks a certain way. Organized, punctual, socially smooth, always put together. A brilliant woman is supposed to have it all figured out. But the research tells a completely different story. The habits that actually signal a high-powered mind are often the very same habits the world calls strange, messy, or even broken. Today we're going deep into 10 of them, and by the end you might realize that what you've been trying to fix about yourself was never a flaw at all. There's a paradox at the center of human intelligence that almost nobody talks about. The smarter a woman is, the more her internal world diverges from what the external world expects of her. She processes more, she feels more, she notices more, and because of that, she behaves in ways that look strange to people who aren't operating at the same depth. Think about that for a moment. The very behaviors that make a woman seem off to the average person are often the direct result of a mind working at higher capacity. It's not that she's trying to be different, it's that she cannot help but process the world differently, and that processing leaves fingerprints on everything she does. So let's look at those fingerprints. The first few may feel familiar, but stay with me, because the ones toward the end are the ones most people completely misunderstand about you. Habit 1. Talking to yourself. The first habit is one almost every woman has done, but very few admit to. Talking to yourself. Not muttering under your breath in public. I mean the full conversation. Pacing around your room at night, verbalizing a problem, arguing with yourself out loud until something finally clicks. To anyone watching, it looks strange. Society already expects women to be composed, together, certain. Talking to yourself in an empty room doesn't fit that picture. But here's what's actually happening. When your mind is processing dozens of thoughts simultaneously, possibilities, outcomes, variables, counterarguments, keeping all of that locked inside creates chaos. It's like trying to organize a library with the lights off. But when you externalize those thoughts, when you shape them into words and hear them spoken, something remarkable happens. The structure emerges. The contradictions reveal themselves. The path forward becomes clear. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky called this inner speech, the bridge between thought and language. And what he discovered was that people who engage in it aren't fragmented. They're organizing complexity that most people never attempt to process in the first place. You're not talking to yourself because you're alone. You're talking to yourself because your mind is too active to keep silent. Have you ever caught yourself mid-sentence in an empty room and immediately felt embarrassed? What if that moment wasn't embarrassing at all? What if it was proof that your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do? Habit 2. The night mind. The second habit is one I suspect many of you are living right now without realizing why. Staying awake long after the world has gone to sleep. You've probably been told your entire life that waking up early is the secret to success. That night owls are lazy, undisciplined, wasting the morning, and for women, the pressure is even heavier. You're supposed to be the one who has it together, who rises with the sun and conquers the day. But psychological research tells a very different story. Studies on circadian rhythms and intelligence have repeatedly found that people with higher cognitive ability tend to gravitate toward later sleep schedules. It's not laziness. It's not poor habits. It's something deeper. There's a kind of silence that only exists between midnight and 4 in the morning. The notifications stop. The expectations stop. The roles you play all day, the listener, the fixer, the one who holds everything together, finally fall away. And in that silence, a highly intelligent mind finally has room to breathe. During the day, your attention is being pulled in 100 directions, by work, by relationships, by the endless emotional labor of simply moving through the world as a woman. But at night, At night, your mind can descend into the depths it's been craving all day. That's when the ideas come. That's when the connections form. That's when you finally understand something you've been circling for weeks. You're not broken for being awake at 2 a.m. You might just be the kind of woman whose mind refuses to shut off until it's had the space to actually think. Habit 3. The messy genius. Here's one that will immediately make some of you feel seen. A scattered room, a messy desk, clutter that seems chaotic to anyone looking in, and a quiet shame you've carried about it for years. Women especially are judged for this. A messy woman is somehow a moral failure, disorganized, overwhelmed, not keeping up. We've been trained to associate cleanliness with virtue. And for women, that training starts painfully young. But a famous study from the University of Minnesota told a completely different story. Researchers found that people working in messy environments actually generated more creative and innovative ideas than those in pristine, organized spaces. Why? Because the mind of a highly intelligent person is not concerned with alphabetizing her bookshelf. She's busy solving something bigger. She's prioritizing. And the physical environment, the clutter, the piles, the apparent disorder, is often just the external reflection of a mind that's currently occupied with more important architecture. And here's what outsiders miss. Even in that chaos, there is a system. The highly intelligent woman can find exactly what she needs in seconds. She knows which pile contains which project. The disorder is only disorder to someone who doesn't understand the internal map. Your messy desk isn't a character flaw. It's evidence that your mind is prioritizing depth over decoration. Now, I want to pause here, because the first 3 habits share something in common. They all happen when you're alone. They're the private signatures of a mind in motion, the things you do when no one is watching. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. The next set of habits show up in how highly intelligent women relate to the world around them, to other people, to society, to the unspoken rules everyone else seems to follow without question. And these are the ones that get them misunderstood the most. Because when your mind works differently, it doesn't just change how you think, it changes how you connect. And that disconnect? That's where the real story begins, especially for women who are expected to connect effortlessly, to be warm, to be available. What happens when you're none of those things, not because you can't be, but because your mind is simply elsewhere? Habit 4. The solitude that isn't loneliness. There is a particular kind of woman who walks through this world feeling out of step. Not because she dislikes people, but because surface-level connection exhausts her in a way she can't fully explain. She's been called cold, distant, intimidating. She's been told she should smile more, open up more, be more available. And she's internalized it, wondering if there's something wrong with her for craving so much time alone. Let me tell you what's actually happening. Highly intelligent people tend to love solitude, not loneliness. Solitude. There's a profound difference. Loneliness is the ache of wanting connection and not having it. Solitude is the deliberate choice to be alone because your own company is genuinely rich enough. Because your mind, when left uninterrupted, becomes the most interesting place you know. Psychologist Hans Eysenck proposed something called the arousal theory of introversion. His research suggested that people with higher baseline cortical arousal, meaning their brains are already highly stimulated internally, don't need as much external stimulation. In fact, too much external input overwhelms them. The brunch that energizes your friends drains you. The small talk that connects most women feels to you like static. This gets mistaken for coldness, but it's not coldness. It's a mind that's already running at full capacity, and it protects that capacity by choosing depth over frequency. 1 meaningful conversation over 100 shallow ones. 1 hour of true connection over an entire weekend of pleasant emptiness. If you've ever been called distant when you were simply full, this one's for you. Habit 5 and 6. Forgetting small things plus questioning everything. 2 habits that often travel together. Forgetting the small things and questioning the big ones. First, the forgetting. You lose your keys. You walk into a room and forget why. You're wearing your glasses while frantically searching for your glasses. You forget to reply to a text for 3 days. And people around you tease you. Or worse, they assume you're scattered, flaky, not paying attention. But here's what's actually happening. Your brain isn't failing to store information. It's actively deprioritizing the trivial to protect bandwidth for the complex. Cognitive load theory explains this precisely. The mind has finite resources. A brain that's processing deeper problems doesn't waste capacity on where the remote control is. It's not memory loss, it's memory triage. And then the questioning. Highly intelligent women do not accept things simply because everyone else does. And this habit in particular has cost women for centuries. A woman who questions is labeled difficult, argumentative, too much. She's told to soften her tone, to be more agreeable, to let things go. But she can't let things go. Because her mind doesn't work that way. She doesn't absorb traditions, rules, or beliefs without running them through her own internal filter. Because that's how it's always been done is not a reason that satisfies her. She needs to understand why. The woman who asks too many questions isn't difficult. She's the one who might actually find a better answer. And deep down, the people who call her difficult know it. Habit 7. Humor that goes over heads. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with making a joke and watching it land on blank faces, especially as a woman. Because when a man's joke doesn't land, he's having an off day. When a woman's doesn't land, something is wrong with her. The ability to understand and use sarcasm, dark humor, and layered irony is strongly correlated with high cognitive function. It requires the brain to hold multiple meanings simultaneously. The literal words, the intended meaning, and the gap between them that creates the humor, all in a split second. Highly intelligent women often find themselves in this strange position. Their humor is too quick, too layered, too subtle. They make a remark that carries 3 meanings and watch as people only catch the surface. It's not that they're trying to be obscure, it's that their mind makes connections faster than it can translate them for others. And here's something I find absolutely fascinating. This same ability, the capacity to hold contradictory ideas in mind at once, is also what makes intelligent women more comfortable with ambiguity. With not having clean answers, with sitting in the gray areas that make most people uncomfortable. Their humor and their wisdom come from the same source. Habit 8 and 9. Overthinking plus procrastination. The twin burdens. Until this point, most of the habits I've described might sound almost romantic. The late nights, the solitude, the depth. But now we enter territory that's harder to romanticize. Because these next 2 habits are the ones that actually hurt. Overthinking and procrastination. The twin burdens of the intelligent mind, and for women, they carry an extra weight. Because here's what nobody tells you. A highly intelligent woman doesn't just overthink her work. She overthinks her relationships, her decisions, her tone in that email she sent 3 days ago. She replays conversations. Did I say too much? Not enough? Did I sound arrogant? Too soft? She has learned, often painfully, that the world judges women on delivery, not just content, and so her mind runs every scenario before, during, and after. Daniel Kahneman's research on dual process theory showed that highly analytical minds default to what he called slow thinking. Deliberate, exhaustive, systematic. It's thorough. It catches errors others miss. But it's also exhausting. And when you pair that with the social hypervigilance many women develop, you get a mind that almost never rests. And then procrastination. Highly intelligent women often delay not from laziness, but from a crushing standard of excellence. They don't just want to complete the task. They want to complete it perfectly. And the gap between what they can currently produce and what they can envision is so wide that starting feels impossible. So they wait, they think, they refine internally. sometimes for so long that the deadline arrives before the courage to begin. This is not laziness. This is the weight of a mind that sees the ideal version of everything and struggles to accept anything less. If you've ever beaten yourself up for this pattern, I want you to hear something. The same mechanism that makes you freeze before starting is the mechanism that, once you do start, produces work that others can't match. The challenge isn't that your mind is broken. The challenge is learning to bypass the perfectionism long enough to get moving. Habit 10, the daydreamer's mind. And finally, the 10th habit, disappearing into your own mind in the middle of ordinary moments. You're sitting across from someone at dinner, a friend, a partner. They're talking, you're physically present, nodding, making sounds of agreement. But mentally, you've traveled somewhere else entirely. A scenario playing out, a problem being quietly solved in the background, a world being built behind your eyes. Psychologists call this zoning out, or an attention lapse. But what's actually happening is something called the default mode network, a brain system that activates when you're not focused on external tasks. And in highly intelligent people, this network is unusually active. It generates ideas, connects distant concepts, and simulates futures with extraordinary speed. The woman who disappears mid-conversation isn't rude. Her mind simply found something more compelling than the present moment, and it couldn't resist following it. And if you've ever been caught doing this, pulled back to earth by someone saying, "Are you even listening?" you already know the flicker of guilt that follows. What you may not know is that the same mechanism that pulled you away is the mechanism behind your best ideas. So here we are. 10 habits, 10 fingerprints of a mind that works differently. And I want to leave you with something. Not just a list, but a reframe. The world will always label what it doesn't understand. It will call your solitude coldness. It will call your questions difficult. It will call your overthinking excessive, your daydreaming a waste of time, your late nights undisciplined. But those labels are not the truth. They're just the limit of someone else's perception. Every habit we've talked about today shares a common thread. They are not malfunctions. They are the natural byproducts of a mind processing at higher resolution, noticing more, connecting more, feeling more deeply, requiring more depth than the environment consistently offers. That's not a disorder. That's a different order entirely. And for the women watching this, the ones who've been told they're too much and not enough in the same breath, I want you to hear this clearly. Your rarity was never your weakness. It was always the quietest kind of strength. I'm Turn Wiser. Drop a comment with the number of the habit that hit closest to home. I'd love to know which one found you. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next video. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.